Well, we are super excited for a slightly different Keeping It Real experience today. We've got a unique opportunity to interview, in a way, a longtime Real Geeks user. And we're going to get into the mind of Craig Schneider here in a minute and kind of see his evolution as a broker, as an agent, and as a CRM website user and modifier. We'll get into all of what that means here in a minute, but excited to kind of step away from what has been the pattern of Keeping It Real here for a while. So whether you're listening live or catching the recording or in any of the places that we're streaming live today, we are thrilled to have you. Really, really excited to have you take a look at what we have to share with you and just be a part of this evolution of what Keeping It Real has been over the years, which is a purely educational, value-added resource for real estate agents really all over North America looking to grow your business as a solo agent, as a team leader, broker, owner. And Craig Schneider really presents somewhat of a fusion of several of those different roles. And so I've had the good fortune of being around Real Geeks for 12 plus years now, right around 12 years, and getting to know Craig really well the last several years, getting connected at a Real Geeks user conference, and then having some really great mastermind opportunities in our mastermind and coaching group. And so I can't wait to share Craig and his knowledge and his commitment and his care and concern for his team and other people with the audience today. So really, really excited to be with you today and looking forward to what may come from you catching this recording a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. So we'll share some information on how you can get in touch with people later. But Craig Schneider is a broker and team leader in Rochester, New York, running what I would call sort of a combination brokerage and team model. We'll let Craig tell us more about that, but he does own his independent brokerage, and his agents are, for the most part, independent, but he's providing a lot of accountability, a lot of training, and a lot of resources and opportunity to them. And today we're going to really zero in on how he's doing that with his CRM and website platform, and what he's been able to do as a really tech savvy owner and creating some customization and some integrations in ways that really all of us could mimic, whether you have a Real Geeks platform or something else. Welcome to Keeping It Real. Glad to have you, buddy.
Well, thank you so much, Todd, and thanks for the nice introduction as well. I guess the question
tell everybody how we got here, how you got into the business, what you're up to, and then we'll just go from there. Share whatever you got.
Certainly. So I came into real estate, kind of a weird process to get there. I started off actually ex-military veteran for 10 years. During that time, me and my wife started flipping a few homes and did really well by it. And it was during a time where they would give anybody a loan. You could stated income, and not saying any of that stuff was right, but we really enjoyed it and made a lot of money doing it. So when I got out of the military, my background is tech and education, as well as just ability. And so when we got out, we thought I was going to go the tech route, but I ended up going into something I had a passion for, which was building homes. And I started working for a national home builder and quickly evolved through the process of that to the point where I started running a region for that national home builder, and did really well during the downturn in the market when all those loans started coming due and people couldn't pay for them. But we continued to do really well in that market and capturing even more market share. My wife at that time wanted to move back to where we're from, which is Rochester, New York, which is where I'm at right now. And so I had to take a decision of where my career would go from there. Ended up getting into home sales for that same builder and did that for 5 years, and just kind of wanted to evolve. I didn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. So I wanted to take the next step, which me and my wife decided would be starting a real estate company. So we chose to do it the hardest way possible. We started our own brand and had very little experience with what was going on. But at that time, we kind of thought we'd be a small little local shop that it was just really me out selling and her supporting me out there. But we quickly turned into an actual real brokerage, and I'm really proud of it. But to start, I guess, from my Real Geek story, which we're going on about 8 years now, I was looking for a platform because I knew I needed a website. So I did a lot of research. And at the time, I was still working my other job. And so I had a lot of time to really dig in and get a really good understanding of what platforms were out there and what was available. Now, I use the word platform, which is really important when you're looking for a real estate website, to have an actual platform. And at that time, 8 years ago, there weren't as many platforms out there. And what I identify a platform is kind of an all-in-one package with your CRM that's molded into your website so you can capture leads. And that was the most impressive part of what Real Geeks offered, was the ability to not only provide information out to an audience, but actually capture their data if you provided enough value to them. I started off at the what do they call it, the Keeping It Real University. And the first person I saw was Todd, believe it or not. And I was just like, I didn't know any different. So I was very coachable because I didn't have any other skill set or bad habits or whatnot. And I remember basically writing, and I probably can find an old journal that has all these notes from it, from your original Keeping It Real. So it was basically yours and Todd, or Greg Harrelson, I remember. And I was listening to them and I'm just like devouring the content, writing it down. I'm like, I got to do this too. I got to do this too. I got to do this. And I was just doing what you guys were saying. And I remember at one point I remember the story of how, you looked at real estate a little differently and you brought people in your office, and it never really got to that level at the beginning, which I wish I would have, looking back, but that's a whole nother story. But I was overly impressed with, someone comes in your office and they get the drink served to them, and it's a whole experience. So we from day one, we tried to capture a method of building out that whole story. And we were really good at implementing everything that was from these Real Geek, Keeping It Reals, but also whatever Real Geeks released, we bought. And I also tried a lot of their things out as well. But we started off with a very minuscule budget on Google pay-per-clicks. I did a little bit of research on my own and set up like a basic campaign and found a bunch of keywords and got it running. And it was just amazing to me, like how easy the thing was if you could put a little time to it. So that's kind of how we ended up being Real Geeks users. And as anybody grows, they start getting focused on the wrong things. Sometimes, you're looking at the shiny syndromes and you're seeing your competitor has this on their website, or, they have that does this, or, and all this other stuff. And so, just like any new business owner, we spent a lot, we wasted a lot of time doing a lot of the wrong things or chasing the wrong things in the wrong direction. I at one point I built out my own website, which I will just say, if you're even considering that, don't do it. Even if you have $200,000 to do it, it's going to be irrelevant the minute after you're done doing it. You personally don't have the time to do it. You're not going to build up a system that's as good as Real Geeks. You just don't have it. It's just impossible. They have, I'm sure at this point, millions of dollars involved. Go ahead, Todd.
Let me inject for just a second, because I agree with everything Craig's saying. For everyone that's watching, real quick, if you haven't picked up yet, you will pick up very soon that Craig is tremendously capable when it comes to technology, right? A lot of us never had any of it, like would never even flirt with the idea of building our own website from scratch, right? But some have. I want to make two big points, and then I want to go right back to Craig because he's got so much to share with you guys. Number one, Keeping It Real has been an educational series for a long, long time that is not an advertisement for Real Geeks, right? So that's not what we're doing here. Now, this is a unique Keeping It Real in the sense that Craig's going to talk a lot about Real Geeks. You're going to find out here in a minute that he has some positive thoughts and he's had some negative thoughts in the past, right? So it's an interesting story, and I think it will be really engaging for folks, whether you are a Real Geeks user or not. But two key points. Number one, Craig's an unbelievably capable thinker when it comes to technology. Real Geeks has a wide array, as do many other platforms, of users, right? That are like, set it, forget it. I don't want to tinker with anything. and everything in between that, and somebody who basically wants to get into the back end and reprogram it every night. So pay close attention to the variety of opportunities as Craig's talking about what he's done and how he's done it and the mistakes he's made and the successes. We will get to some of those successes and share those with you and some of the how-tos. The other thing is just a reminder that this isn't intended to tell everybody that everything else is terrible and Real Geeks is perfect. Nothing's perfect. I don't work at Real Geeks. Craig doesn't work at Real Geeks. But it's a fun conversation that can be really valuable for everyone watching and listening, if you are a Real Geeks user and if you're not a Real Geeks user. So just 2 key points. Let me ask you one question that's a little bit different from the train of thought you're on, and then we'll jump back in to kind of your journey. Real quick though, could you just share with everybody watching and listening what your business setup is? You know, as far as broker team, agents, what's it look like? What's the size? What's kind of the flow and interaction of things?
Yeah. So I can only compare to like what I hear from other people at seminars and stuff like yourself, Todd. I've never worked in another brokerage house. I don't know what it's like. I mean, I visited them quite a bit. When I was new home sales, I sat in their meetings and stuff. However, based on, now we're going on 8-9 years of business, what I'm starting to learn is I think I'm in an original OG brokerage house where the broker used to actually manage a brokerage house, versus the new age where they just bring on bodies and then you have to join a team to actually learn how to do the job. So, but I could be completely wrong. So don't judge me. But the reality is we consider ourselves a brokerage. We are a brokerage, I should say. And our agents, we treat them like team members. We give them resources to be successful, which I'm sure all brokerage houses do. I shouldn't say that, but we also provide them leads to be successful as well through lead distribution. And we call them supplemental leads to help boost their business. Some of my agents are doing 100% of their business off of my leads. The other percentage of my agents are just doing their own business because they've grown to that percentage or came into our business with their own business model. So we're kind of a hybrid program when it comes to lead distribution and even comp structure, which there's a lot of trust in that type of structure, but we bring on the right people. We can be small. We can make really quick decisions. We're agile. And that's what we love about where we're at. We can make really great decisions for the most important person, which is our customers.
Yeah. So couple of just follow-up questions, and then we will jump right back into kind of Craig's journey and how website and CRM are really fueling him to some unbelievable success. So about how many agents are at the brokerage?
So right now we have 29 agents on our team. I've been as high as 36, and we've always been, even from our first year on, because I did one thing right out of the gate. I hired a recruiter that was a past agent, a successful agent in our market, and they did all the recruiting for me, bringing on bodies, so I didn't have to get caught up in that. The only problem is if you ever do something like that, make sure that your recruiter has the same visions as you do for your company. And I guess that's enough to be said about that.
Yeah, I think point made. Okay, so you got, in the ballpark of 30 agents is kind of where you've been. What does staff look like?
So I run on a very skeleton force. I mean, and most people are going to probably think I'm lying. It's truly myself, and I'm still in production, and Todd's been trying to get me out for a long time, and he's probably right, but I can't let go. I'm a junkie. So I'm still doing production. I'm not competing against my agents in any way, shape, or form. They always get the first leg and they get most of my deals anyway. But I do produce. And then my wife, who is really running the company, she handles all of our marketing. She handles all of our social media, which looks amazing and gets us tons of business. She is handling all of our lead distribution, which we call that position our Internet Lead Specialist. So ILS. Is that right? I don't know. You guys can figure it out. And then, but she's handling all that distribution. And then we have an operations manager in our office that's handling basically all of the kind of other types of tasks. That's it. It's just the three of us running the brokerage, and we're able to do really well by that. We've brought in, so a little past history, which is a little teaser, maybe some of the content we're going to get into. I did have an in-house ISA. We had two of them, actually. We had one, and then that one moved on, and then we had another one. And then I realized I'm too small to be training ISAs the rest of my life. So that went away. But we also had a marketing person, because I always try to bring people that can do jobs that I want to get off my schedule. That also just didn't seem to work out. We just didn't have the right person, I think. And we found that we can outsource a lot of those projects, and people take a little bit more ownership of them when they're outsourced versus someone that's on your payroll.
All right,
maybe we didn't have the right person.
Well, let me interject here, just for those that are taking notes at home. Ballpark 30 agents with 3 staff. And one of those staff is Craig, who is the owner and is in production and still does quite a bit in the new construction realm as well. So you're really looking at 30 agents with 2 to 3 staff. Now, just super short, quick and dirty numbers, as specific or ballpark as you want to get. What would the production look like from that team?
This year we started tracking our goal a little bit different. We used to track it in units, but I found that I truly have changed my kind of perception of that. I'm now tracking GCI. So our GCI, and actually our total volume as well, which everybody does. We're in a pretty low dollar market. Even still, our average sale price going into the pandemic was like $150,000 average sale price in our market. We're now pushing 200, which is great for our market. Right. But our goal for the year was 43 million. I'm sorry, no, it wasn't. Actually, yes, it was 43 million, and we're at 35 million right now in volume. Our GCI was 1.8 million, and we're currently at 1.5 million. Yeah. So we're 0.3 million away from hitting our goal for this year. And we have, what I told my team this morning is we have about a month and a half to make that happen still, with this last quarter, just to get it under contract and closed in time. So we're going to be sketchy tight probably on that, but we feel really good. Our goal going into this year was super aggressive. So to be able to do that, we're really proud of those numbers.
I'll bet you a paid vacation right now that you do hit it. Are you willing to bet against yourself?
No, we're probably going to crush it, to be honest. Our upward momentability is just unbelievable. And the other thing that I'm really proud of is we did implement a tracking system going into this year, which has totally changed my business as well. I never thought I'd be able to and believe me, I'm not a numbers tracking person, even though I'm an engineer. I just focus on the big issues, and having this, it took us a while to get it implemented, about 2 months, but once we got it, it tracks itself now. So we can go back, and at any second I can look at where my numbers are. And one thing I was really impressed with is we have currently right now 128 buyers that are committed to us through a buyer agency agreement that are in our system that haven't bought something yet. So being able to know that kind of information is super helpful in deciding where you need to push and what levers and who you need to focus on and those kind of things.
On that note, let me ask you a question, because we started doing something I think would benefit a lot of people. Real quick, what system are you using to track it?
We're using something called CTE, which is something you turned me on to. And and I hope that Calvin's not listening, because if anything, it's the second thing I get the most value out of for the lowest amount of money. I mean, it's like, I want to say it's like 25 or 30 bucks a month. And
I think it's $29.99. It's worth every stinking penny. Yeah. And CTE will be a sponsor of the user conference this year. Couple things real quick, just in case someone's catching the recording of this later. Craig's talking about being almost all the way to his goal in September of the calendar year. And he's just being a good leader and telling his team, hey, we've got a month and a half to get stuff on under contract so that it can penned and close and fund by the end of the year, when really they've got the full quarter left, but only a portion of that is going to work to get things under contract and close and fund. I want to come back to more of those numbers later, but I want to make sure people are getting really good nuggets and takeaways. So a good one is CTE. A thought I had for you there, we also track how many buyers we have currently under representation agreements. And we're doing a much better job this year of tracking their budgets, so we can have our future projection of our future sales volume on the buy side, as well as our pre-signed coming soon listings and things. Are you guys doing that?
Yeah, we're doing that. And then, I have a sneak peek of a pro tip that I'll be actually doing at the user conference. I got a bunch of pro tips, and one of those is just using the Real Geeks system to also help you look at your pipeline. And it's pretty easy to do, and it's an awesome tip. And everybody's shown this to is like jumped right on with it. So, all
right. Well, you haven't shown me yet, so I'm a little upset about that.
Come to the user conference, and I'll let you take a look.
Maybe I'll be there. Okay, let's go back into kind of your journey, right? So you got Real Geeks set up, and you started kind of working off of it, and then things started to be a little bit frustrating. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was more of a business thing. So like our life cycle of So I got to get this out. Before I go into that, I do want to say one thing I really love about Real Geeks is their openness, or that they're an open source tech platform. And for those who aren't techie or don't understand tech, what open source means is they play well with others. They allow data to be transferred from their system to other systems, and then the same is true. They allow data to come into their system as well, and they allow you pretty much full access to doing anything you want with that. They also allow you to modify your web page itself, which you have to be a lot more technical to do that. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that doesn't know what they're doing. And I also, to be honest with you, the longer I've been doing this, I wouldn't encourage you to really touch a whole lot of it, to be honest, because the simplicity of the system and the fact that it is fast, because Google's tracking all of these things, it's been set up to be very powerful out of the box, and try to live within the system as physically much as possible. But that's one thing that I found with researching a lot of other platforms, was a lot of them, and it's because of the complexity that comes with it. A lot of them don't allow you to do a lot of that stuff. They'll tell you, yeah, we can do it. But when you actually start trying to do it, you won't be able to. And this comes from experience of me spending a lot of initiation fees with a lot of these companies and a lot of my wasted time too, because you setting up a web page on someone else's platform, if you spend a week doing it, and you don't use it, is just a bunch of wasted money, in my opinion. So
time, energy, and money. Okay,
yeah.
So you're a Real Geeks user, and you start wanting to do some things that you're not getting done. What are the things that you wanted to do, but Real Geeks wasn't working well with?
So one of the things was lead distribution. We had gone through a process of different things. And I actually have some notes here because I knew that we may be talking about this. And so our first evolution of lead distribution was, where is my note on that? Well, the first thing was we used the round robin within Real Geeks, which works great. However, the human portion of that gets busy and can't get to things, or so we had agents in our round robin that wouldn't contact that person. And we took advantage of the system that Real Geeks had as well, which you can, if someone doesn't respond within a certain amount of time, it goes to the next person. And at one point in Real Geeks, it used to just keep on going. So if that person didn't, and it could go all the way around a couple circles for your whole team. Right. And after a whole weekend, nobody still contacted them. It just kept on moving. So that was always not great, but we worked it, it was more of a management thing as a broker. You had to try to manage it. And my wife, who was doing all the internet lead specialist stuff, she was trying to keep on up with it. And it's a lot of work. So then we came up with what we thought was the best idea ever. We came up with something called, and if you're looking for a good fit. This might work for your company well, because it worked for us for quite a while. It was actually pretty great. It was called lead shifts. So with lead shifts, it was just like the old days at being at a real estate company where you sat at the front desk and you got to answer the phone for 4 hours or whatever, and you got to keep all the leads from that shift. So we basically, at the beginning of the week, my wife would send out a calendar, and you could sign up for 2 shifts right out of the gate. And then after 4 hours, you could sign up for as many that were left over. So it gave everybody a chance to at least get a couple shifts. And then basically what would happen is during your shift, my wife would turn all the leads on that came in during that 4-hour shift would go directly to you. You'd be the only person getting leads. And we thought the benefit of this was, you could actually time block your lead hours. You get a lot more leads in that one little shift, and you could actually be focused on doing the right thing. And it worked really well. The one thing that was tough with it was, me and my wife were always under the gun of making sure we were shifting the lead things. And I'd love to say we did that perfectly, but sometimes,
no way. That's
impossible. I mean, it's a lot. It's every 4 hours, you're basically making sure that you're going in and manually changing the system. So it worked really well, but over time it just got to be a lot of managing. So the next evolution was we hired an ISA, because that's what everybody was doing at that time in history. Just so you know, everybody.
It's so easy. You just have someone do it for you. It's really easy.
Yeah, and if you can give away, you're talking to people and building rapport with people to like somebody else, why not do that? That sounds so smart. So not that it's not. We had success with it. We had our internal ISA was great. We got all, and I think it was from some of these keeping it real conversations. I was writing copious notes and taking notes on how to hire the right person and what their DISC assessment needed to be and everything else. And I did all of that. And I brought in somebody who's amazing. Now, what I've learned, and I can't say it's true for everybody, is that the perfect person for that role is typically not somebody that's really suited to be locked up in a room making phone calls all day. So it's kind of, they do it well, but they get tired of it pretty quick. And so we hired somebody, they did really good. We're making a lot of appointments for us, but then they got burnt out and they ended up leaving. And then I hired another person, trained them all up, got them, and they were doing really well. And then the same thing happened. And then I looked at the life cycle of this ISA and said, okay, there's probably only so long and I'm going to have to do it all the time. So if you have a big enough company or a big enough team, it might make sense to have someone that almost is training these people consistently and bringing them on. We realized we couldn't. So we went to the next best thing, which was we were going to outsource our ISA. And we did that through a company out of San Diego named Agentology. And this is right about when I came to the first user conference, and I was bragging to everybody how I had real estate figured out. You're not doing it my way. You don't know what you're doing. And, I pay these people $5 and they turn it into a lead and everything was great. And to be honest, it was working really good at first, really, really good. And I think they changed some of their stuff internal, especially when we got into like getting really close to the pandemic, where they started, doing more of it through text. I think they were having good results with that. And so we were tracking it and we realized that a lot of it was text. And there was one phone call and then it was all text. And I was like, okay, well, Real Geeks has got workflows. Why wouldn't I just create text? So I basically built our own text campaign out in Real Geeks. And at that time, for a year, I think it was a year and a half, I had been working on a program in the backside, which was to basically allow leads to go into our Slack channel and our agents to claim leads through Slack in a Shark Tank. And we have basically a couple different Shark Tanks that we put different lead or different agents in, depending on where they're at in their training. We have one for buyers and one for sellers. And they basically get popped into there. And at that point, then from that point, an agent claims it, and then it gets auto assigned in Real Geeks in the back end to them so that they can work that lead. All so right, that's kind of our evolution we've been on. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Time out real quick, because you just said a lot. And my guess is a lot of people didn't connect all those dots. And they're going to want some clarification. So let me do two things. I want to clarify exactly what you said about lead distribution through Slack. We'll come back to that in a second. But first, at what point did you get so fed up that you stopped using Real Geeks and started using something and started looking at other things?
It was when I couldn't get the Slack thing figured out because I didn't have the know-how to do that. It was my own inability that. So what I did was at that point I started looking at places that could provide me the next level of.
Well, and look, you're being really kind and trying to be really respectful of everybody, and that's good.
Oh, there was another thing. Yes, I remember that. There was another thing. We were having some technical difficulties as well with our Real Geeks platform at that time too, which were fixed.
And it was an integration with MLS type stuff like that. Yeah. So look,
and it wasn't really, as it turned out, it wasn't Real Geeks' fault. It was my local MLS switched their feed to a different provider, and that provider is kind of known to not have really great data. And it took Real Geeks a little bit of time to get that straightened out. And so that was happening at the same time where I was just like, I needed some new lead distribution and everything else. And so I did shop and this is about a year and a half ago, because the pandemic always makes me forget.
Let me inject again and just say this. Nothing is perfect. Right. And this is not a sales pitch for Real Geeks. Craig came back to Real Geeks. We're going to get there in a second, and he'll be able to give us some insight into what he's doing that's really cool with those Shark Tanks and Slack and some other things too. So stay tuned for that. We're getting there. I just want people to know the value and how it impacted you and your company and your team before we share all that. But I do want to cut to the chase real quick on a couple of things. So you got fed up that some stuff wasn't working. You got fed up that Real Geeks wouldn't do what you wanted it to do at the time with your Slack lead distribution. And then we're not going to badmouth any other company, but literally what companies did you check out?
So so I checked out all of them that were, just so you know, I made a list, a spreadsheet.
Name the names though. Just there might even be some people don't even know about.
Yeah, so I checked them all. I'm not going to name them all because it'll take me 20 minutes, but I'll name the top 3 that I narrowed it down to that I thought were contenders, I should say. And one of those was Chime. They actually were the one that I ended up going with after I did a ton of interviews on the phone and everything else. And I think Chime's a great platform. Another one would be Boomtown, which I already went through that whole process years and years ago. So I just checked with them really quick to see if they had fixed a problem that they didn't have before. And I'll say this as well, and not to for them, not for Real Geeks. So can you bleep me out, Todd, at this point?
Yeah, we'll
so
see.
I think that Real Geeks is the best investment I have in my business, like in the sense of how much I pay and how much value I get. I can't believe they're able to provide a service that provides so much stuff for the price they do. And I know I'm locked in a little bit lower price. However, I know still the street price for Real Geeks is like unbelievably low in contrast to any platform that's even similar. So that's my first thing. So I was willing, because I was at a point in my business where I was just like, I'm willing to pay more to get these extra features that are some of them are perceived and some of them are true features, and some of them are just, well, actually I can do the same thing in Real Geeks. I just didn't even know about it before, so now I'm going to start doing it. So and that's another really great feature that I'm going to point out at your conference, Todd, is I've been able to take a couple of features that I've learned at other platforms and be able to mold them into Real Geeks just by adjusting some custom searches and stuff within the system that are all free. So there's no cost to that. So the reality was I ended up going with Chime. I set everything up. They said that I could make adjustments to the pages and everything just like I could in Real Geeks, but that was not true. I did not have access to any of the back end information. I had to get everything approved them. And I was even okay with paying them to do that, but they couldn't even do that because, and I'm not 100% sure, but what it was starting to feel like was everything was being outsourced somewhere else, and they didn't have control of those things. You weren't dealing with the actual company that was developing it. Whereas with Real Geeks, the developers are in-house. They're, and I'm sure they're outsourcing some of it, but most of it's being done within the walls of their business. And
Well, and
so,
it's nice when the primary architect is the CEO and you can talk to him and jump on. He shows up at the event. Like we're going to interview Kevin at the Real Geeks conference, and he'll talk about new features and the evolution of the product. I mean, that's a pretty unique deal. And then you were even able to talk to him and their team as you were wrestling with some of these problems, right?
yeah, and that's how we got a lot of it fixed as well at that point and stuff. But the other thing is some of the features that I thought I wanted, because we did soft release our other website next to our current one just to see what kind of results we had, send it to some of our, users that use our site quite a bit that we trust. And some of the things I was noticing was the stuff that I thought was better was actually worse. And one of those was I always thought it would be cool to send like photos of the actual houses that were on the market to my clients so that, they would get the photo and it would show up on their email. And I thought that was cool. That looks awesome. It looks more professional than just getting a link. And then I found out that I lost the ability to track who was actually interested in looking at houses still because they weren't clicking anything anymore because there was nothing to click. So they were seeing the houses. I don't like any of those houses. Next, and so we weren't getting that interaction. And the other thing is our web hits were just totally different because people weren't going to our website to look at those properties. They were just looking at their email. So, and as everybody knows, people go to the website and then they click around at a couple other things. And we weren't getting that engagement anymore. So, so that was one thing that we really realized that, wasn't helping us. The other thing that was a deal killer for us was our area. A lot of people search by school district. It's just how our market's set up.
Yeah,
And
areas, yeah.
they were not able to create a school district search for us that wasn't buried like 10 layers deep. And I actually heard on this Real Geeks conference, probably about maybe 6 months or a year ago, there was a gentleman talking, and he was just talking about what is so great about the Real Geeks platform is the simplicity of the search tool. And that made me like all of a sudden go back a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to go more to the original, how it was originally developed, and because it works well. And a story to add to that is I was at the DMV yesterday and wearing or actually I had a North Star pen with me. And the girl there said, oh, you're at North Star. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I love your website. It's amazing. I use it every day. I get an email from you guys every day. And I go, oh, interesting. Why do you use that? And she goes, because it's easier than all the other sites. All the other sites, it's hard to set up search and everything. You guys give us all the tools and it's super easy to use. And so that meant a lot to me because that's who really matters is the customer.
Just to double check, did you make that story up, or is that?
I didn't make it up. I will say that she was really mean at first, though, just like all DMV people. But yeah. I loosened her up with my charm. So,
and your pen and the North Star pen. Couple things to observe. I have said this for years because I've done the Keeping It Reals for a long, long time. I get a lot of calls and Facebook messages about how I use it or what I think and all that. I have said for years, what I love about Real Geeks is I can use Real Geeks as complex as I want to, but I also have the freedom to keep it as simple as I want to. And it's my belief, one of my core values of business is that your business should be as complex as it needs to be, but as simple as it can be. And so, yeah, we don't need a bunch of bells and whistles that get in the way, but sometimes we do need some cool workflows and text abilities and things. But I do want to get specifically to what you've done with Slack, because it creates an opportunity that wasn't necessarily built in, but that Real Geeks definitely facilitates and allows and creates room for you to create. So in a real quick nutshell, what are those Shark Tanks and how does it work? And if I'm an agent on your team, how do I interact with the Real Geeks site to get those leads and work them?
Yeah, so it's super complex in the back end, but super easy in the front end. And that's one thing as I keep on going back to is the simplicity of Real Geeks is why people use it or why it's really great. And I don't want to not mention two things because you led into them. Is number one, the workflows. If you're not, this is a tool that Real Geeks provides for free. And if you're an old Real Geeks person like me that's been in the system for years and years, and listen to Greg Harrelson, who used to sell an awesome program, and I know Todd uses it still, called Infusionsoft, which I used as well, which is incredibly complex and hard to set up if you're not techie. And Real Geeks implemented this. I don't know. It was probably 3-4 years ago. Is that right? They put the workflows in. So we moved all of our Infusionsoft stuff over to Real Geeks and created a bunch of additional drip campaigns. We have an actual drip campaign we're willing to share with anybody. I know I've shared it with your team before, Todd, that we have basically over 400 days, the first 400 days, customers get engagement from our CRM. And the benefit of this is with the Real Geek system, they enable you to use text, emails, and now video as well in the content. You can put emojis and everything in there, which we do. And so like when someone comes into our fold, signs up on the Real Geek site, which if you're not forced registration on your site, you're insane in my opinion. But so we force registrate them. They come in, they're getting an email. The first thing they get is a text message from our system about 6 minutes after they come in. We're always trying to change this a little bit, but 6 minutes seems to work well for us. It's just kind of like, hey, we're already working on setting up a search for you. Someone from our team is going to call you, blah, blah, blah. A minute after that, it sends another really short text out. It says something that sounds like it's coming from a real person that's typing a text with some type of emoji. And then a minute after that, we have one more. All of those, we don't get huge engagement on, but the one we get a lot of engagement on goes out 45 minutes after. We get, I would say it's close to almost 50% engagement on. And that question, and I wrote it down just because I knew everybody would be interested. It's something to the sense of, are you planning on buying or selling or both? It's that simple of a question. Are you buying, selling, or both? We get about 50% engagement on that where someone will say one of those three things. And let me tell you, when you know that all of a sudden you have a both situation in front of you, it makes you a lot more interested in calling the lead for some reason. And we're quantifying, find out, where they're at in their cycle. The other cool thing about the Real Geeks workflows, if you haven't gotten into them, is they will stop. If you set them up, they'll stop when that engagement happens. So you're not going to send out another stupid email or another text or whatever and look like an idiot. It will stop for you until you turn it back on. It puts it in what's called hiatus, I think it's called. So
yeah, and that's important though. If you're overusing automation, you're going to look like an idiot at some point if you don't have stuff like that.
So the other thing we used to outsource that, and the only reason I'm bringing this up because I want, as a tech person, I want to share like the cost savings. So I don't know what the cost is for Infusionsoft now, but a few years ago it was like $250 a month I was spending on that. But I had to pay like $4,000 to get into the system originally and set it up. So I'm saving a lot of money there. Then I also used to do BombBomb, and Real Geeks about a year ago, I think it is now, released their new video piece, which is even better because now I can engage, I can actually send pre-recorded videos out from the system as well. And, we're infant users on this now, but our goals and our plans and our outlines for this is really endless. And it's amazing that Real Geeks is continuing to grow and provide these type of awesome services. If you're not using them, there's no value in them, but, figure out ways that you can make them work into your system. There's a huge value. So enough to be said. Oh, and I'm saving about $1,700 a year, not having to pay for my BombBomb anymore. Yep. So between the two, I'm saving big money. It's nice.
And there's less stuff to log in and out of and jack with all the time. I mean, that's like, it's no brainer. So how does the Shark Tank work? Just real quick, pick one and explain how it works.
Yeah. So basically a lead comes into Real Geeks, just like it normally would. And at that point, it is picked up or it's sent over through a bunch of little widgets that are happening in the background, and it goes to our Shark Tank. So we have, as I said, 2 sharks. So we'll just use buyer as an example because we get a lot more of those, unfortunately. So the buyer Shark Tank, we pick who's in that tank. So whoever's in that Slack channel, so people who want to be in that. Not all 30 of my agents are interested in claiming leads. I think it's usually around 10 to 15 of our agents are. They're all in that channel. And when that lead goes over, and it's instantaneous, it just automatically happens. When it goes over, a little button shows up with a little fire and it says new lead available. And there's a little button under it that's like a web button that you normally hit. And it says claim lead, and you click it, and whoever clicks it first, it gets assigned to that person. And it just says on the Slack channel, so-and-so won the lead. That's all they see.
Okay,
in the Slack channel, the agent who won the lead also gets the basic information for the customer. So if they want to call them directly from Slack, they can. So they're getting their name, phone number, and email, or name and phone number, I think it is, or maybe email.
Okay, time out real quick. All right, so you have a simple Slack channel. For people that don't know what Slack is, it's a simple messenger program. You can get a free version, and you can pay a very reasonable fee for a robust version. So you have a Slack channel, you've got 10, 15 people in there. And on the back end, you've got all the integrations. We don't need to worry about that because it's possible. Somebody wants to do it, they can learn later. But comes into Real Geeks, automatically drops into that Slack channel where all 10 to 15 people can see it. And so the benefit there is you got, instead of one person trying to respond as quickly as they can, you have 10 to 15 people that the most available, most ready person can grab it. And now you're telling me all they got to do on their computer or their phone is tap that button, and then it claims it. Automatically, they get the contact information, and it automatically assigns it to them inside the Real Geeks CRM. So I can start calling them right away, log into my Real Geeks app or Real Geeks CRM on desktop or whatever, and start working it immediately. But to me, and I'm sure there are others, to me, the big benefit is even our best agents who are most responsive, occasionally they're with a client, they're, at a date, they're at their kid's sporting event or whatever. And so every single time a lead comes out, it's a first come, first serve. So your most aggressive people are rewarded and no one's technically penalized. So it's a really efficient, it rewards the hustle and you get quick speed to lead. So since you started doing that, is conversion up?
Yeah, big time. And just the type of interaction. And like you said, Todd, I mean, it's not agents not wanting to do their job. It's just life gets in the way. And, hopefully they're on a showing or an appointment and that's the reason they're distracted, so this helped out tremendously. The other thing I do want to point out that is really critically important if you've ever tried to distribute leads before is we were doing it through text. There was like a short term, but that was almost impossible for my wife to manage. But we were sending out text messages. We got a new lead, who wants it? And the reality is all these text or carriers were sending out the text at different times. So we'd be in our own office and like, you could see it go like one agent would get it and then the other agent would get it like a minute later. And the agents who were on the slower carrier were really, really mad because they weren't able to get leads. And in some cases they were actually claiming it, but it would show up on their phone in the right order, but on ours it would be different. So we were getting a lot of fights. Let's just say that. With Slack, you don't get that. Everybody gets it at the exact same time.
Yeah,
so.
That's awesome. And by the way, when I heard about this from Craig, I talked to Kevin McCarthy at Real Geeks and was like, we got to tell people about this. I mean, this is so smart and so simple. Now the back end is complex, but the experience for an agent or for the site owner, if you've got more than say, 2 people that could have access to leads, at this point, every person you add gets.
So this is what it looks like on my agent side, just so you know. So we have, right now we have a few leads that could be claimed. We have a surplus of leads, which who can complain about that? That's an awesome broker. So if I wanted this lead right now, which Annie's going to kill me, but I'm going to do it anyways, I would just basically click on this little yes, Now we tell our agents to go back to the oldest lead and pick the oldest lead. So they're getting the oldest stuff, which, wow, embarrassing broker stuff here. I'm not even going to go any further back. So these are from yesterday's leads. We got to catch up, obviously, but I'm going to click this here and it can see that I clicked that lead and that lead was just assigned to me in Real Geeks. So now I have that access to that lead and I can call them and do all the stuff I do with it. So
very cool. Very cool. All right, look, nobody's perfect, right? So Craig shows you a system and they haven't claimed every single lead, but let me point one thing out real quick. And I want to speed up, make sure before we wrap up, we drop a ton of value. So M. Fallon is one of the guys on your team. And I know him because Craig has participated in my private mastermind group and some of his team members are on there, and Mike is awesome. And he takes advantage of everything Craig provides. And he's gone from being in the car business to being in real estate and doing really well, really fast because of the work that Craig puts in and Mike hustles too. But so if he claimed like 8 leads in a row, right? So if he's the most aggressive, most attentive, hardest working guy, he can eat all he wants to eat. It's a really cool system in that regard.
Well, and that's what the benefit of that is too, is like when people have, the time to put some time into working these leads properly, they have the advantage to, there might be 5 or 6. I don't get too upset if, we're a day or a day and a half behind. I'd love for us to be, there's certain times you go in there and it's completely, there's nothing available and you got to wait until that one comes in and you're fighting for them. But, there's oftentimes maybe it's an hour behind or whatever, but it works. They're actually getting communicated with. And the other thing that I feel good about is our system is doing stuff in the background as well. So, they are getting those drip campaigns, which are not as good as obviously a person, but at least something's happening.
Well, they're not just sitting there with nothing going on. Okay, let's kind of go lightning round here before we wrap up the conversation. We did have a question on YouTube Live. They said, what was the third company you considered? You'd said Boomtown and Chime.
Sierra.
Okay. They asked if you ever looked at KV Core. Did you ever?
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't.
I have had this conversation with Craig, and I can't think of a company that he did not check out, right? And he's way more tech savvy than me, and I've looked at a bunch of them too. And I get promoted all of them to me because I've been so involved in Real Geeks for so long, and I host the user conference and all that stuff. So real quick on the topic of the user conference, Craig is also going to be speaking the morning of day 1 at the user conference this year. If you're not signed up, you're crazy. You should go check that out. You do not have to be a Real Geeks user to attend. The website is urguc.com. It's short for Unofficial Real Geeks User Conference, urguc.com. Anyone can attend. It's virtual this year. If you buy a VIP ticket, you get a free guest. I'll share my screen real quick just to show everybody kind of the schedule of events for that deal. Craig's going to be delivering this kind of building around Real Geeks at 10 a.m. on day 1, where he's going to be telling you literally like all the hard and fast technical details of everything he and his team do with Real Geeks. You've gotten to hear today really specifically this really cool lead routing strategy that he basically created with Slack, where you can increase your speed to lead, you can increase your aggressiveness, your conversion, all the while having your automation and your workflows in the background with text and calling and emailing and all that stuff. Do you want to tease a little bit right now, Craig? I know you had like a list of just 7 cool things you're using Real Geeks for.
I'm not going to give any of those away. You got to come to the Real Geeks conference. And I actually got 10 pro tips that I'm going to go over at that. But I also want to say that we'll show you our whole workflow at that event. I would love to show it today. I'm a sharer. I would love to share it here, but it would take us another hour and we're limited. But, I want to also talk about our integration with Mojo. We also are using a dialer that's also automated within that same system. And by using a few awesome tags that or buttons that you put into Real Geeks, that once again, it's all super easy to do. And their integration with Mojo is amazing. So We can show you the benefits we've also secured through that. And then just what our workflow looks like. And you can copy all of it or any portion you want. I mean, to us, we've benefited from it. And the only reason I'm willing to share it so much is because everybody in this group has shared so much with me. And some of it's regurgitated or, taken from other agents from this team as well. I've just implemented them. So,
yeah, I mean, it's fun to see people, and we hear this a lot, right? Because I think I know I did the very first Keeping It Real back in the day. I was begging Jeff to do this stuff. So it's fun to see people like Craig kind of raise up in our community. That's why I started the user conference, because we wanted to connect. Users wanted to get together, share our best stuff. I've benefited from the generosity of other members. I've shared as much as I could. Craig's benefited. Now Craig's coming back and sharing, and we want to invite all of you to do the same thing. That is what the user conference is. It's grabbing players from within the Real Geeks community and saying, hey, jump on a panel, share your stuff. So Craig's going to be sharing as many ways as he can, how he uses Real Geeks. We're going to have Daniel Priestley, who's out of London, who's not in real estate, but I think is going to be a massive contributor. I love his books. I've been in a mastermind with him. We're going to have some really awesome players. Kevin will be on stage. Lindsay, who runs all the tech support for Real Geeks, will be on stage. We'll have tech support available the entire event. We'll have some really great sponsors like Calvin from CTE, Todd Bogert from RG Site Builders, some SEO specialists, and some really amazing other contributors that deal in title and mortgage and things all over the country that are relevant for real estate agents. I do want you to grab a ticket to that. You can bring a free guest with that. Check out urguc.com. You're going to want to hear Craig go into a lot more detail. Let me give you a couple more minutes because I know you got more you want to share.
Well, one thing I'll give one of those tips away, and it's the most important thing. If there's anything you walk away with from this meeting today, or just the Real Geeks conference, to be honest, it's the number one thing you can do to be successful with your Real Geeks platform is make sure that every single person in your system is set up on a search, either being a regular search or a sold search. And I know not all areas allow sold searches, I believe, but if your area allows sold searches, all past buyers should be on that. Every single person in your system should be set up on a search. It's the best drip campaign you can provide. It's providing value out to your people.
Let me clarify, because a lot of people say, well, doesn't the system do that automatically? It just saves automatically something. So clarify what you mean.
So if the system did create one, it's going to be very generic. So, and once again, if you go in there and it's set up and it's generic and it's working, that's cool. But it doesn't always set up a search, and it depends on if it can pull enough data, I believe. And I would just check. I mean, it doesn't set them all up. I know that because it's my wife is keeping track of that for every single one of our customers, and they're not all on searches. And she could probably add more if she's on this. Well, she can't probably add into this call.
That's okay. The other thing I was going to say, just to clarify that, is people put in really broad searches. They put in their dream scenarios, and sometimes they don't put enough in it for the system to do it. But what Craig's basically saying is, if you want to convert them, go in and narrow their search, create a better search, create a more accurate search. And obviously, as you make contact with people, customize them and develop them further. So that sounds like a simple, obvious thing, but there's a lot of people that are just sitting and waiting for the system to do everything for you. And if you'll go in and create or clean up or customize or narrow or focus those searches for them, you'll see massive increases in response rates and conversion. And then Craig's got a list of 7 technical things, and we're going to get into at the conference a ton more detail. But if you're taking one thing away other than that from what Craig shared today, it's he's tried everything out there. He's highly, highly technical, and he's telling you that Real Geeks is capable of all that. He's also telling you, keep it simple when you can. Keep it simple when you can. And I think there's a lot of people with teams and brokerages that really would benefit from the Slack system that Craig has created. And I know, like he already said, he's willing to share that. So we'll talk a lot more about that at the Real Geeks conference as well. If you're enjoying what Craig is sharing, he's going to go through kind of the whole team setup, how the agents interact, how they lead, how they've built it, and some of their rules for operating within it and accountabilities at the conference. It's going to be a great continuation with even more technical, a lot more technical detail than this conversation. And then we have another Keeping It Real coming up on October 7th with Daniel Priestley. who's an incredible entrepreneur, best-selling author, like New York Times best-selling author, and really amazing technology guy who's not in real estate, but I've been doing a lot of work with for the last year or so. And he's going to share a really cool piece of technology he's built that can work with Real Geeks, and also just some really cool principles for building a business that apply perfectly to real estate. That Keeping It Real is on October 7th, earlier in the day. He will also be speaking live at the Real Geeks conference. And the conference is October 19th, 20th, and 21st. October 19th and 20th, heavy Real Geeks content, heavy technology. You don't have to be a Real Geeks user, but a lot of CRM, team agent, individual agent built stuff with some really cool breakouts. That's going to be great. And then the 21st is a bonus day sponsored by Real Estate Growth Systems, my coaching consulting company, where we're going to give you some of our core content on how we are attracting a ton of referral business, a ton of reviews, and a bunch of really, really high profit business from doing more of that. Is there anything else you wanted to share with folks that would be helpful for them before we wrap up today, Craig?
I'm just a big, as you know, I'm an engineer. I'm a big component of systems, and, Real Geeks, I've broken down real estate into basically 4 categories so far in my life. And, everybody always shared with me, it's a numbers game. So we run numbers, we run a lot of numbers, and the value of the Real Geek system is it enables you to do that if you use it to help you in the background. It can't replace you. It's not going to quantify leads for you. It's going to help you quantify leads, but it's not going to actually just set up appointments for you. You have to be able to do that in the end. But, using the systems to help leverage your business is super critical. And there's, like I said, 4 steps of, that I've identified. And the first 2, Real Geeks is really doing for me. And then the other 2, I have to be really good at as a broker or as an agent. And, those are the things that we know in our industry. So, find a platform. I'm not saying Real Geeks is the only answer. There are other options out there, but make sure you're comfortable with it and make sure you're using it. That's the other advice I would have, is make sure you're putting everybody in your whole database, everybody into Real Geeks. Don't put just the internet leads and then use another system for this and another system for that, and keep them all in one place. It's super helpful. I mean, there's been a million times I've been out in town and I see a customer. I hope none of my customers are listening. I see them at the grocery store, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, that's so-and-so. I can't remember their name. I pull up the Real Geeks app and I look up their to find their name. So, I mean, it's in my pocket, so I can go up and introduce myself and talk to them by their name. It's always more impactful. So utilize the tools that they have, and you'll be very successful in this industry. I've built my whole business off of the Keeping It Reals and their platform. So I really appreciate it.
I love it. I appreciate your time. And I've gotten to witness not only Craig building this business, but his team members' lives completely changing. You're talking about multiple millions of dollars of gross commission income with a highly profitable business where agents do really well, owners do really well. They don't have to kill themselves and go out and sell 1,000 houses a year in order to make a great living. And they get to keep a big chunk of that gross commission income because they're keeping it lean. They're using technology, and they're invested in relationships. So there's not a whole lot of hot air and excess and wasted energy, time, and effort. People can have a great life. I mean, I love hearing stories about Craig and Ann going camping with their girls, and you'll hear more about their story and the life that it's created for them at the user conference. So I'm pitching it so hard because I want you to get more of Craig and see some of the other sides of how his brain works and how his heart works for his people, his community, and his generosity to share with you guys. So last request, go to urguc.com, grab a ticket for the user conference. You can bring a free guest. We're giving you all sorts of bonuses, all the recordings from previous events you're going to get as a bonus this year, and some really other really cool stuff. Go ahead, Craig.
So I want to, if you don't sign up, the bonus day is what you want to sign up for too. And I know, and Todd didn't ask me to say any of this. I did the first year, and I just thought this through. The second 2 steps of the process come from Todd, being able to help you get those next 2 things. And just so you know, those 4 pieces I've identified is, number 1, adding people to your database. You need to add 5 to 10 people to your database a week. I use Real Geeks to do that. You can get them, obviously you can get leads from all different types of sources, but at the end of the day, they go into that system. Number two, that's really good, is having a systemized method of providing value to your clients and staying in touch with them. Real Geeks is really good at doing that as well with their drip campaigns and helping you set up follow-ups and everything else and sending them their daily updates of what's going on in the market. The number two or the number three thing is the ability to secure or establish an initial consultation. Todd has some really great insight that I've implemented in my business that helped me be able to, or help me train my agents and myself on how to get those initial consultations set up. And then the fourth thing is the ability to win those consultations and have somebody that's committed to you. So you're out in the field with people who are committed to you. The rest of it's easy. Let's be honest. Showing houses and all that stuff, pretty much, and I don't want to say anybody can do it, but a lot of people could do it. It's getting people that are committed to you to work with you. That's the hardest part of real estate. And those 4 steps, if you do those well, you're going to have plenty of people to work with and be very successful in our industry. So Todd can teach you those second things. I know he didn't put me up to it, but if you don't, I would highly suggest at least just hearing him out for that 3rd day. He's got a lot of really impactful information there as well.
No, I appreciate you doing that. We want to make it about our viewers and all that value, but it's been so fun to see. I mean, you were already doing well, but it's so fun to see you grow and your brain go from old fee system to new fee system, old value proposition, a new value proposition. That's the kind of stuff we'll be talking about at the user conference for 3 straight days. So jump in with us. If you need any information, let us know. Yeah, look at Craig Schneider, best-selling author, ladies and gentlemen.
I had to put I got to get that out there. If you haven't bought this book, it is available on Amazon. All the proceeds are going to help feed children in need. So, make sure it's got great content in there. I can't take all the credit. There's some other great authors on the back as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to have Craig and a mastermind together and just watch his brain work and how generous he's been with other people. So, Craig, if people want to get in touch with you, refer business to Rochester, New York, or just share some info with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, I have this. It's a Real Geeks site, and there's an agent link there. All my contact information is right there. If you're not sure how to use a Real Geeks site, figure it out. But it's at norchar.com. It's spelled NORCHAR.com. It's actually named after my 2 daughters, which are Nora and Charlotte. That's where it comes from. So
love it. Norchar.com, NORCHAR.com. Get a hold of Craig. He'll take great care of you in Rochester, or maybe just share some ideas and talk a little bit about Slack and technology and things. If you're interested in the event, it's urguc.com, and then stay tuned for October 7th, Keeping It Real with Daniel Priestley out of London and the UK, a brilliant entrepreneur that I've learned a ton from, and I can't wait to share him with you as well. So thanks for tuning in with us. We are excited about the event and the future of sharing all of our best stuff within the Real Geeks community. It's always been the most generous Real Geeks community I've been a part of, and we look forward to a lot more in the future. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you very, very soon.